Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the video. My name is Jeremy Haynes. If you're new here, we talk about hitting $1 million months. We do so with high ticket products or services, and my entire channel is dedicated to that topic. Go ahead and check out some of my other videos, subscribe. If you're already a subscriber, welcome back. It's always exciting to have you here. Pumped to drop some more value on you. Today's topic, why your call funnel sucks, okay? There's very specific common reasons, patterns, tactics, and strategies that the people who have shit results with call funnels are consistently falling victim to. And I'm gonna help you out tonight. I'm gonna open up the clouds for you, and I'm gonna help you understand how glorious call funnels can be by overcoming the things that you're likely doing that are holding back the performance of that funnel, to be clear. And so we're on the same page. Call funnels can mean a few different things. You might be running DM ads, and you might be having conversations with people via setters in most instances that are then scheduling out a call with a closer. That technically counts as a call funnel. You could be doing webinars, live, pre-recorded, whatever, where you're generating leads, getting them to show up to a webinar, and telling them, go book a call. That's another form of a call funnel. The most common form of a call funnel that typically sucks for people when they don't do things the right way is just a standard, you're driving direct response advertising over to a call funnel, which has like a VSL or a mini webinar usually on it, has an application and some form of a scheduler. And then to be clear, you're letting those people either get onto a 1-call or a 2-call close system. If it's a 1-call, they're typically getting on straight away with your closers. You're trying to take money and transact. In the instance it's a 2-call close, generally goes to a setter, then a closer, and then again, you're transacting, collecting some cash. That's the most common call funnel that exists. Just so we're on the same page, vocabulary-wise, you could apply almost any lesson I talk about in a video like this to any one of those funnels, to be clear, that has the outcome of a call, and it'll be applicable. Okay, so number one, why your call funnel sucks. You suck at the framing process, okay? You don't recognize that there's a huge difference between organic and paid, okay? You know there's a difference, but you're not acknowledging what the difference is and adjusting your paid advertising strategies and efforts around those differences. Typically with organic, there's just a higher level of intent. There's more awareness, the people consumed more of your videos. Like, you know that happens, but you don't know how much it happens. So you undermine the timeline. You know, for some people that your sales team reports back to you, they'll tell you things like, oh yeah, this person saw your content a few days ago and now they're buying. Well, it's like, how much content did that person consume? Sometimes, as you know, people sit there for months and they consume shit, okay? We gotta be able to pull that timeline down to a really small couple day or sometimes even couple hour window in order to get people as framed. In order to replicate the organic sales process via paid advertising, we have to be propagandists, okay? We have to be so good at framing content and being able to get that framing content, whether it's in the form of video, written words, and/or emails, calls, like whatever we can do. We have to get that messaging in front of these people prior to them having a conversation and after having a conversation with our salespeople. So there's these key moments where the framing matters a ton. And we've talked about this before in other videos, but just to reiterate, we got these 4 quadrants of content. Number 1 is questions. These are the most common things that are happening on sales calls when you historically have done a terrible job at framing. People show up just with a lot of like curiosity, general interest, like trying to figure things out type questions. What they're attempting to do is essentially sell themselves or sell themselves against what it is you're doing. Trying to qualify, see if it's worth their time and effort, understand the game and how it works and what the outcomes are, how they get the outcomes. These are just the general first set of questions that come up. Now, to be clear, after those questions get answered, what happens after that is there's more questions, but they stem from the original questions getting answered. So questions from other questions getting answered, okay? Now this category, as lengthy as it sounds, is very important. I'm gonna give you a very broad example. If you've ever heard some dickhead from New York say, by the way, shout out to New Yorkers, you guys are great. If you've ever heard some dickhead from New York say, our bagels are better, our pizza's better, it's 'cause of our water. Because you're water. What are you talking about? That's an example of a question that originates from the original question getting answered. Somebody says, hey, why do you say your bagels are better? Because our water. It's our water. Okay, that's original question. Question 2 that comes from that original question getting answered. What are you talking about? It's your water. What do you mean? And then when that question gets answered, you see what I'm saying here? That happens with your offers. We had a guy the other day, he's in our Inner Circle program, he's a member, and he has an incredible offer, to be clear, where he's teaching people to do sober living homes. okay? To be clear, with this offer, after you're asking him some general questions about, okay, well, what is it? Like, how does it work? He'll explain that you can buy almost any piece of real estate, but there's very specific ones that he buys, to be clear, and put people into it as almost like a rehab center to a degree. And I'm sure he'd articulate this way better than what I am now. Right away, after you hear that, you're like, wait, so this is a real estate offer? Like this is a real estate play? It's like, boom, then there's a whole nother like worldview that gets unlocked. And these two categories, I list them first in my 4-quadrant system because again, they just have so much importance and weight. Once people become sold on like what the vehicle is and how the vehicle works, the perspective shifts. And this is what happens on sales calls, to be clear. What happens in that next stage of a sales call, if those types of questions were getting answered, is there's this expectation category, okay? Expectations are the questions of like, well, what's it take for me to do that? Like, what's it take for me to get successful with it? What's the timeline of that? Is there additional cash involved on my end? What are the risks? You know, it's like, these are the expectations, but people don't generally give a fuck about the expectations until they've gone through those first two categories. But here's the best part, is like, yeah, in some instances you can sequence all this information, but in other instances, just with like content distribution campaigns, if you just fucking hammer people with all this type of content, all the information will be available to them come time of the sales call, which is what's important to understand and why this specific 4-quadrant strategy works so well. But let me finish the quadrants before I divest my attention with you here. Objections. Okay, again, when we are in a real sales process, after the expectations are laid out, it's all about objections. It's like, well, here's what kind of holds me back from doing that. Can you address that? Again, all of these pieces of content can typically come from reflecting on your own sales process and trying to identify what are the questions that come up after those original questions get answered, what are the expectation related questions or statements that are told to the customers, and what are the objections that come up most frequently. You can handle all of this with what we refer to as the hammer them strategy, okay? The hammer them strategy, ideally we're doing upwards of 6 emails a day, and ideally we have an absolute blitz of content. We want a frequency between 15 and 20 between the window where the call is. So after booking and before the call, that's where this content comes in, okay? And we're gonna fucking slam people with it. We're gonna frame them, just like, remember, in an organic sales process, they consume an untold amount of content. By the way, a super pro tip, in addition to these things, you can also pepper in some long form. Great example of this, I had a podcast I did with the Fresh and Fit boys about 2 years ago. We just recently did another one too. Shout out to Myron and Fresh. To be clear, this podcast, the first one, was 1 hour and 55 minutes long. And there were some bangers in it that could help a lot with pre-framing. So what did I do? Dropped it on Facebook, put a video view campaign behind it, targeting people that I eventually wanted to sell to. Cost me $1.07 to get somebody to watch the full 1 hour and 55 minutes of that thing. Would you pay $1.07 to get somebody to watch 1 hour and 55 minute video of a podcast that's historically increased your organic sales? I sure would, and I wouldn't just do it once. I would do it an unbound amount of times for however many different long form pieces of content could create a similar effect. You get what I'm saying? When we can take all of that content, the hammer them content, and in addition to that, the key pieces of organic content that we've known to work, and we fucking blitz it with somebody. We hammer the fuck out of these people after the direct response, after they've booked a call, after a sales call and they still didn't buy, after they've bought, in order to increase upsell probabilities. We dramatically influence the probability of our call funnels having exceptionally greater levels of success. And by the way, just so the people watching this who aren't running call funnels understand, obviously you can take everything I just said and apply it over to like e-com, apply it over to any kind of, once again, high ticket product or service funnel that leads to a sale, okay? I'm specifically framing the information around call funnels and they suck at it and they don't know why, okay? This helps a ton. When you master framing and the specific stages of framing in the process, which comes with mastering that specific 4 quadrants of content and mixing in your organic best performing content all together in a giant cauldron of future profits for you, you make a fuckload more money, okay? To be clear, and to continue on. 2, this is sales framing. okay? Commonly, people don't hire teams for one or the other. You generally roll your organic team over to your paid advertising. So what happens is you are gonna have a team that's been historically used to warm layup deals, okay? Whether you wanna acknowledge it or not, your salespeople aren't really having to sell that much at all. They're doing a tremendous job because people are coming in exceptionally well framed. Now, you have sucked ass at being able to frame people from the cold paid ads that you do, or even targeting your warm audiences with paid ads. And then you wonder when your sales team gives you this feedback of like, hey, all these leads suck in comparison to the warm ones. Well, it's like, dog, you gotta understand there's like a switch they flick, okay? And most sales teams fail to flick the switch. Okay? That's why I call it sales framing. They have to be able to be aware, okay, this calls from organic, this calls from a paid ad. There's a slightly different sales process that's required to one or the other. You can't just show up to every single organic sales call and hit them with the brute force that might be required on a paid sales call. And vice versa. I can't show up to a paid sales call and expect to just have a layup deal. I've got to do a little bit more selling. I've got to recognize that there's a much shorter duration of time that this person has been exposed to the business, okay? So there might be different sales assets that are required. There, by the way, might be different marketing automation systems that are required between the two in order to successfully make the paid advertising call funnel work at scale. You want that thing to pump money at scale? You've got to get every element of framing, from the content to the sales teams, okay? This requires one of two things, either training differences, okay? When you successfully tell the team, all right guys, we're doing some paid advertising training today, let's learn how to deal with these leads, versus you have an entirely different, hey guys, today we're gonna be doing the organic layup deals side of the business training, let's go over what we need to do to get these deals closed, okay? You're gonna do the same thing when it comes to like follow-up systems your salespeople use for one or the other. If you've got a setter team, same logic, you're gonna train them on the same stuff. There are key differences, okay? Or this is the other one that matters, and this is kind of an either or thing here, just to be clear, okay? This other one is you have different teams, okay? You have one team that's solely for your organic. You have another team that's solely dedicated to your paid advertising. This way there isn't a comparison bias that can occur. This is what sucks with rolling over both teams. Like if I have an organic team that I roll over to paid advertising, or I have a paid advertising team, because some businesses build off paid advertising first, that then gets to deal with organic leads, either way you look at it, they get their perspective tainted, okay? Because again, there's a comparison bias that can occur. And it's real. It's not like a fake thing. It's not something you can like out-train them to not see. Like it is evident. And again, if they can't flick the switch between the two, a different team for both is required. That's how it goes. Okay, 3, do the math, please, okay? This one is hilarious. Like we had this guy, he's in our inner circle, to be clear, his name's Daniel, okay? Now Daniel, well known on Twitter, and whether you know him or not, you know, it doesn't really matter. He was sitting in front of me at one of the Inner Circle Masterminds, our most recent Q4 one that we just did, the last one at the farm mansion, and he was telling me that he did like $800-something thousand in that month, okay? And I was like, why the fuck didn't you hit $1 million? Like you're telling me you couldn't have pulled out a measly $200,000 difference? And I started asking him math-based questions. Okay, what amount of calls were missing? Like how many more calls did you need to be able to hit the $1 million in a month? Like where could that other $200,000 have come from? And it was this almost like dumbfounded moment. He didn't fucking know the number. I then started doing the math with him. I was like, all right, so how much was the cost per call? What's their closing rate on average? Is it a 1-call close model? Is it a 2-call close model? Do we have any data on show rates? You know, do we have the ability to look at what cost per call has been throughout, let's say, the last 90 days on average, or the last 30 days, since we're in Q4 now with this conversation? Point being, we then reverse engineer exactly how much spend needed to happen, which was like a super negligible number, by the way. It would have been a comparison of like, okay, if you would have risked an extra $50,000, which if you take $50,000 and you would have successfully spread it over the 30 days in that month, that could have taken him from 800-something thousand to all the way up to an extra $1 million in the month. You know what I mean? That extra 200,000 was the gap. And he didn't close it because he didn't do the math. On top of that, they're in the process of like, okay, I want to exit the business. I want to get to this position where I can sell eventually. And from that perspective alone, I asked him, I was like, how much would that extra 200,000 have added in potential exit value? He didn't know that fucking math, okay? And again, it's like, well, what are you gonna do throughout the month to really push the organization and to make the necessary changes in real time to not only capture the extra $200,000 within that same calendar month, that cash flow, but in addition to that, to know that if you did, you created this much additional potential value upon exit. None of this math was done. So I had to put them on game. Like what we start to do with almost everybody that we work with is we walk them through these financial models, okay? And in these financial models, like they're very simple. This top one that you see is a 2-call close. The bottom one is a 1-call close, okay? And as an example, like depending on what you want to risk in ad spend obviously dictates, the revenue potential that you can make on the other side of it. Pair that with all of the risk you have in a show rate going your way, your close rates going your way, or potentially like even a rebooking rate or a cancellation rate. Like all these things have to be factored in. The top one being a 2-call close. In this example, what we see here is ad spend in row 1, cost per call in row 2, show rate in row 4. We have the second call booking rate, because remember, in a 2-call close, we have the people who book, the people show up. How many of those people who showed up book a second call? How many of those people who booked a second call show up to the second call? How many of those people who showed up to the second call close? From there, we have our cash collected per sale. I charge $15,000 a month currently for our advertising services, probable to go up soon, just to be clear, for the base fee. But this would be an example where you plug in your marketing costs for whatever those retainers might be for the business. You have sales commissions, and from there you have gross profit. We typically build these models, just to disclose, much more sophisticated than this. I threw this together as a very simple example to help you with understanding, because again, no offense if you do math, to be fair. Congratulations and pat on the back to you if you genuinely do math and modeling. If you're watching this video and you don't fucking do math, which is the highest probability, by the way, out of all my viewers. Surprisingly, even though almost all of you watching this are rich as fuck and trying to hit $1 million months, you still don't do math. It's insane to me. I come into your business and I'm like genuinely shocked. You want to hit $1 million months, yet you're not doing fucking math. Insane. You have no idea what it takes. You have no clue what your KPIs need to be. You're just operating off of like a gut feeling for whether the statistic is good or bad. You don't know if whatever your current cost per call is good or bad. You don't know if whatever your show rate is good or bad. You have no fucking clue because you're not doing math. So again, you have to fucking do math. You have to do math if you want your call funnel not to suck ass. You have to. It's how it works. It's a game of math, It'd be like playing Monopoly and not being aware of how, when you pass go or roll a snake eye X amount of times in a row, you go to jail automatically or get $200 when you pass go. It's like you just don't know the rules of the game. It's like, imagine not knowing gravity exists on Earth. You know what I'm saying? Like, you see how that fucked you up when you're going through life and how much risk it could increase dramatically with just not knowing gravity exists? You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude, do the fucking math, okay? Do the math. It's insane. You also see, by the way, when you do math, that if you continue to have this 2-call close model that you've had, every single statistic compounds against you, dude. Every single statistic. Like when you add additional steps to your process, you fuck yourself. You lose tremendous amounts of money because you're compounding a loss per step. Versus when you simplify it, like look at the same thing. $100,000, $100 cost per call, same cost per call. By the way, this is where your show rate, this is where your statistics can start to vary between a 1-call and a 2-call. You'll likely get the same show rate initially, to be fair. There shouldn't be much difference between that, and obviously there's not going to be a difference in your cost per call. So as an example, if we just plug into the model here the same 68% as our 2-call close had, you will typically see a difference in your overall close rate. Your close rate should be dramatically higher in your 2-call close based on the fact that that's a longer duration of time that you have to fucking slam them with content, emails, build rapport, increase the amount of total duration and time they experience with your organization. A 1-call close, as simple as this sounds, like it's a tight time frame. It's a tight time frame. But if you spend enough and you hammer them enough in the framing part of the process, you still have a really good chance, especially when your offer is good, by the way. If you have a great offer, you have a really high probability to bank 1-call closes, okay? So again, you could operate with a much lower close rate in the 1-call model, which you're probable to have, to be clear, and still cash collect the same amount And look at the differences here. Like in the 2-call close, you risk $100,000 with average statistics throughout the process. And obviously, if you did math, you can plug your statistics into the process and see for yourself what yours looks like. And then down here, we have our 1-call close where we risk $100,000 and we flip it into $344,000 in comparison. The differences are dramatic, but you know those differences if you do math regularly. When you do not do math, you could be running a 2-call model and be operating on razor-thin margins and wondering why you're always losing money, and then it becomes super obvious. Some of you don't even track those statistics accurately. It's insane. But again, you want to hit $1 million months, right? Okay. To be clear, these 3 things, there's a lot of other shit we can talk about, but I talk about it in much more detail in my Inner Circle program. Twice a month one-on-one calls, weekly group calls where you can propose what topic you want to learn about in detail to the group. If we collectively agree to it, we talk about it in that specific week. In addition to that, 4 times a year we do masterminds. We do them right here at the Penthouse in Miami, Florida. We have a giant movie theater room for our speaker presentations, great networking environment. Then we come up here, 2,500 square foot balcony where we all hang out, have fun. It's a great time. In addition to that, group chat full of rich people trying to get a hell of a lot richer. And again, we go through all this kind of information in there in detail, either on our one-on-one calls, DMs together in real time, our weekly group calls, or literally at our masterminds. It's not just me in there that's awesome telling you to make more money. Everybody in there is the same way. You come in there as a good value add and you get a lot of value too. It's a real win-win relationship. And we'd love to have you a part of it if you're a rich person trying to get a hell of a lot richer than you are right now and any of this information resonates with you. Links in the description if you want to check it out. To be clear, I'm going to close it out with one more great tip for you just to add some additional value on you here today, okay? Point number 4, when you do math, when you have your salespeople in framing, and when you do not suck at framing in terms of content and pre-call information, one thing that you can do is you can focus on the lifetime value. What I'm specifically inferring here is if we can get, as an example, like maybe 10 to 20% of our overall callers who are gonna buy from us to purchase something that might add a few $1,000s, okay? That's it, that's sometimes all it takes. Sometimes it's tens of thousands of dollars. But as an example of this, we have a client, I won't say her name, she teaches people how to buy businesses, okay? And she has a $10,000 offer and she has a $35,000 offer now, which is soon to go up, by the way. If we can get 10 to 20% of the people who show up to these calls to go from a $10,000 offer to a $35,000 offer straight away, because the $35,000 offer is higher level. There's more to it. A great example of that, let's say you apply for my Inner Circle program that I just pitched a moment ago. If you end up being somebody that we could actually sell into our marketing services, instead of making the small amount that we'd make off you in the Inner Circle program to deliver value and make you more money, we get the opportunity to charge you way more than that through a marketing agency relationship where we are hands-on, so probable to make you even more money. You see what I'm saying? My point being, it's important to understand. I don't need to do that on every call. We don't push to do that on every call. It's not an opportunity to do that on every call. But for the right person who occasionally comes through that funnel, where we say to ourselves, it'd make a lot more sense if this person just did our marketing services instead of the Inner Circle. Like, they could make a lot more money a lot faster, and it's a great deal, and like yada yada. You know what I'm saying? If I get 10% of the time that to occur, the total amount that I can plug into this cash collected column here goes up from whatever the standard offer price is to, as an example, it might just average out to a few $1,000s more, but watch what that does. Okay, if I can take that number there from $5,000, okay, and I can get it higher. Let's use the example in total, it nets out to $7,000 because 10% of my people buy something that's far more expensive than the standard $5,000, okay? Look at the difference. Remember, it was $344,000 and it was like $177,000 before. Now that $177,000 is a full $120,000 more, $119,000. To be clear, down here at $527,600, that's fucking sweet. That's almost $150,000 plus more that we just made. Technically almost 160. That's awesome. That comes from a total difference of 10-ish, maybe 20% of people spending that upsell. Again, with the example of the female client we have that does tremendous. $10,000 regular offer, $35,000 for the big dog off. Doesn't make sense for everybody, but for the right person, we're gonna push it on them because it delivers them more value. We have a higher probability to get that type of person the result. 10 to 20% of the time, jacks up our overall cash collected, nets far more money, get more ROAS. In addition to that, we get more people that we can deliver higher level value to. Win-win for everybody there. You get what I'm saying? Gives you more cash to be able to take more risks. So when I say focus on lifetime value, all I'm saying is create something for the big dogs that come through the process. Create something that when it just doesn't make sense to sell that person the lower ticket thing that you've got, that still is what sells a majority of the time. And there's those big dogs that occasionally come through. You gotta have the big dog offer. That makes a tremendous difference in helping you make it so your call funnel does not suck, okay? Subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop a comment with something you got out of it, and for fuck's sake, go check out some of my other videos. I've got a lot of bangers on the channel that are all dedicated to ideally helping you hit $1 million months. Keep in mind, 0.1% of businesses hit the big $1 million months. There's a dramatically low probability if you really think about it, but there's a pattern, a set of actions, a very key mindset that you have to maintain to even make it probable for yourself. And videos like this, they're the stepping stones that help move you forward on that path. Definitely not guaranteed to help you get there, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, they definitely give you a little pat on the back, a little forward momentum. Okay, I'll see you in another video. Go get richer in the meantime. Bye.